So thank you to those of you who are here. My name is Jen Bentley, and I'm the Alumni Officer for the Faculty of Health. So it's my job to create opportunities for not only our alumni to engage back with the faculty, but opportunities for our students to connect with alumni and learn from them and their experiences and get advice. And so that's why we created the Alumni Office Hour series. And we'll be hosting events like this throughout the term. And ideally, this will continue every term. It started last term. So I encourage students to keep a look out for these events, because we'll try to cover a lot of different careers so that students are able to explore and ask questions and learn about lots of different career types and opportunities. So I'd like to also begin by acknowledging that much of the work of the University of Waterloo takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building. And it's centralized within our Indigenous Relations Office. So I'm excited to have everyone here. And it looks like we've got a small group, which will be to the benefit of those of you here. Nice one-on-one advice from our alumnus, Ben, who's here with us today. So I do want to encourage everyone to turn on their cameras so we can have a nice interactive conversation, as opposed to Ben just having to talk to a bunch of blank screens. So for those of you who are comfortable with turning on your cameras, I would encourage you to do that if you don't mind. And if your current location does not allow that, I do still encourage you to participate and ask questions. You can raise your hand when we get to the Q&A. And still use your mic to ask questions if you're comfortable with that. So let me just check my notes. So thanks to everyone being here. And where am I? Let's introduce Ben. So Ben is here with us. He is a territory business manager with Dexcom in British Columbia. He started his career with Dexcom 5 years ago, beginning with the inside sales team and transitioned into field sales in 2019. His current role involves routinely meeting with physicians, nurse educators, and diabetes specialists to teach them about the benefits of their patients using a Dexcom continuous glucose monitor. Ben works from home and travels throughout the week, either on the island or northern BC, to meet with these practitioners. He is an avid rock climber and lives with his wife and daughter in Victoria, BC. Ben took these are his words, took the long way to finding his current career and would love to share some of his learnings. He has both his undergrad and master's in kinesiology and went through a number of jobs that all helped gain experience for what he is currently doing. Sales was not a career path he thought of as an option after graduation, but is extremely rewarding, and his undergrad learnings have been invaluable to him. So I will let him fill you in on the rest of those details and tell you a little bit more about his journey from Waterloo to where he is now. So Ben, over to you.
Yeah, thanks guys. Pleasure to meet everyone. And by all means, feel free to, I won't be talking long about myself, but we'd be more than happy to open up the Q&A once we get there and ask me really anything you need. As Jen said, I did my undergrad in kin from 2006 to 2010, and then did a master's with Dr. Jim Rush when he was still doing much more research-based stuff in cardiovascular physiology. After that, I transitioned into being in charge of the lab. So I was actually hired on as the lab supervisor for Jim's lab for about 1.5 years before my wife and I, or girlfriend at the time, decided to pick up everything that we had and move to BC. So that was a little bit of a scary transition because we moved to BC with no jobs, no job prospects. Field start. God, I hate my uncle. That's my uncle. No job prospects. We had signed a lease online, and so we were just hoping there was actually a place there for us. And once we got there, we did have a buffer of money that we had saved up, but we were just trying to find whatever jobs we could. And so I landed in a high performance training institute type of thing. I was working physiological testing there for athletes who were looking to improve. These are mostly just weekend warrior type of people. And so I would run VO2 tests for them, lactate threshold tests, all those type of things. So very much directly stuff right from my undergrad, because in my master's, I was a lab tech and TA for Physiology 101 and the labs associated with those. So pretty much had a lot of hands-on use of VO2 max testing and protocols and those type of things. So that was super helpful in that respect. And so I was there for a few years and then transitioned into working for a bike shop, because in that time I had become an avid cyclist and really loved riding my bike. And so was able to land a job at one of the biggest and highest performance cycling shops in Vancouver. And so I worked there for about 3 years on the sales floor, so basically selling bikes. But I was also the bike fitter there. So I did approximately 200 or 300 bike fits over the course of those 3 years. So another application of kinesiology background, because bike fit's all about joint angles, optimizing body position so that the patient or the cyclist is comfortable while riding. So that was a really nice way to transfer that knowledge pretty nicely into something I really loved with cycling. And then coming into about the 3-year mark of working at the bike shop, I knew that I wanted to be in something different, but I still really had no idea what that was. And so when looking at how I transitioned into my current role, my thinking was, how can I use the information that I already have, which is quite a good knowledge of the human body and those type of things, without going back to school for another degree like physio or going into another specialization? How can I just move into something like that? And so I had some conversations with some people who were in surgical sales and some medical device sales and pharmaceutical sales. And it seems like a very nice avenue to try to look into, because I had sales background from selling bicycles. I had a nice medical background for learning a lot of medical terminology and a lot of these disease states, when reading about some of the pharmaceutical products or any type of surgical instruments, you have a real good foundation of what those would actually do in real life. And so I found that was a very appealing part of it. And the whole idea of medical device sales or surgical sales is really cool, because you are speaking with experts and doctors and really being an education tool for them to make their practices better. And so I just started applying to every job that I could find that was an entry-level type of job into those markets. I found working with a recruiter extremely helpful, because at the time I didn't have a lot of, moving right from undergrad and my master's right into jobs that I got basically because I knew the person who owned the places. I didn't have a lot of interviewing experience. And so I found the first few interviews, I just was not good at interviewing. And so that was something that the recruiter was really able to help me with, was take the feedback from the hiring manager and say, hey, this is what they were saying. You're a great candidate from this, but we need a little bit more of this. And so it really helped me tailor exactly what I would need for these positions. And then, yeah, that's kind of where I landed in Dexcom. So Dexcom is a San Diego-based company that had just opened up a head office in Burnaby, BC, which is just next door to Vancouver. And so they were hiring from the ground up from everything. So I was able to land an inside sales position. So with an inside sales job in that type of company, I would call patients that had submitted their information. So if they wanted to get a Dexcom, they would submit their info. I would call them and work with them to decide which option was best, do their insurance coverage, talk to their doctors about getting paperwork and all that done, and then completing the sale. So that was a really invaluable experience for me to learn a lot about the actual business and what that entailed. And then luckily for me, a field position in Victoria opened up and I was able to transition into that. And so now my current role is field-based. So I travel around all of Vancouver Island and northern BC, and I used to have the Okanagan as well, but we've just hired a new rep out there. And so my day-to-day is figuring out the most influential doctors and educators in my territory and making sure that they have the most up-to-date information about Dexcom, why it's beneficial for their patients to be using one. And that takes into account, talking about clinical papers a lot, because a lot of times when the doctor is saying, why should I prescribe this? They use clinical information to base their decisions off of what they're going to go with. So being able to have that really high level ability to take a study, boil it down to the real nitty gritty pieces that a doctor would be like, that's why I would want to prescribe this. It's really beneficial. And that's something that I really took away from a lot of the graduate level courses that I took, where basically just reading research papers and taking little points from them and stuff. So yeah, that's where I am now. I'm very lucky in that I do have, well, I guess not lucky that I have type 1 diabetes, but I do have type 1 diabetes. And so it really helps me sell Dexcom because I use it myself every day, and it is a life-changing piece of equipment. And so to be able to talk to something that I'm already very passionate about really helps with the day-to-day, as well as, all of the physiology courses where we're looking specifically at type 1 and type 2 diabetes that I took in my undergrad have just paid dividends in lending yourself as a credible source of information when you can talk to these doctors about, how exercise and how obesity and how eating patterns affect the disease state that they're looking into, and how the thing that you're selling can help them interpret all of that information. It really helps bring all that together. So that's basically me in a nutshell. And the reason I said that it took the long way to get there is because up until about 5 years ago, where I landed in Dexcom, I had no idea what I wanted to do. At the time when I graduated in 2010, kinesiology wasn't a registered profession in Ontario, so there was still no college of kinesiology that you could register into, or it was just starting, I think in like 2011 or 2012. And so there weren't that many options to be a kinesiologist. And a lot of the options that I had were either ergonomics, physio, or doctor. And my grades weren't good enough for doctor. Wasn't sure whether I wanted to be a physio or go back to school for physio at that time. And then, so I was less options were in my direct line of sight when I graduated. So I was glad that I took some time to mosey around some different things. But, coming back to my core values that I learned in undergrad and in my master's, I basically use that stuff every day in my day-to-day, which has been really, really helpful.
And I feel like maybe a little bit unique that I would say I'd be curious to know how many people use, some of the things they learned in their undergrad, like in their daily jobs. I mean, some people, but I don't know about when you say you were running like VO2 max for people. I was like, oh, wow, I haven't talked about that or done one of those in a long time.
I know, yeah, it was fun because it was like part of it was like cycling coaches. So I'd run cycling classes for people, not necessarily be on the bike with people, but setting intensity zones for people. They would do their test with me and then translate that test data into their workouts that would be at the facility. And that would be tailored to their, specific heart rates and lactate thresholds that they were hitting and all the power wattages we were using. So that was very much, yeah, as I said, like undergrad direct translation into that. And I know a lot of people who have done that and just done that, which is a great avenue as well. But I knew it wasn't exactly what I wanted to
do. Great. Well, thanks for that, I guess, storyline for us and setting the stage. I'd love to see if any students have any questions that they want to ask. I do encourage you, again, to turn on your cameras and take advantage of this conversation with Ben. I see that, oh, great, Nina's got a question, and I've got some ready also. So Nina, we will let you go first. And if you want to introduce yourself and let Ben know like what term you're in and everything, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Ben. Nice to meet you. I'm Nina. So I'm studying kinesiology also at Waterloo. I'm in my 2B term right now, so I'm on co-op. And I'm working as a social media assistant for the kinesiology and health science faculty. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm really liking it so far. But yeah, and then just one question, or I have two questions if that's okay. The first one is, did you minor in anything throughout your years in your undergrad?
I almost did a chem. Yeah, I almost need to check my transcript because it's so long. I think I did like, it was almost a pre-med one, I think. That was a thing. But I was doing like heavily into physiology, almost no biomechanics. My third and fourth year, I am not good at math. And so biomechanics was something I did not like. And so, yeah, removed almost all biomechanics, almost all of the social study aspect type of things, and was very physiology heavy for me because I really liked it.
Awesome. Okay. And then I noticed you were talking about physio before. I don't know if you have any knowledge about this, but I was always looking to go into physio or even to athletic therapy. But just one question. Do you think, like, you did your master's, obviously. Do you think you could have gone into physio without a master's?
Yes. Probably, maybe. I'm not sure about my grades.
Okay.
Like, that's one of the things I was finding difficult too at the time when I was considering perhaps going to physio, was that the grades needed to get there were getting even higher, because I was seeing a lot of people who weren't getting into med school would then go into physio school. So there's still a very high bar to get into physio, and it wasn't like, oh, well, I think I don't really want to do this, I'll go to physio school. It was really at a certain point you had to decide whether that was something that I wanted to do. And when I started in kin, I was in the co-op program as well, and the options I had available were basically odd ergonomics jobs in factories that were far away, or working in a physio clinic. And so I worked in a physio clinic in Barrie, Ontario, which was very character building because it was in the middle of the winter. But it was something that when I was there, I did learn a lot, and I really enjoyed my time in that co-op program, but I knew that it wasn't something that I personally wanted to do all the time. And so that's how my train of thought got derailed a little bit after that. And to that respect as well, when I was doing my master's, I was fully anticipating in doing PhD, prof, that route. And so once I finished my master's, I realized that for myself, the pure academia route wasn't the way that I was made either. And so that was another little bit of a derailment. So entering kin, I was very much like, I need to be a doctor. But then that got derailed, then derailed again, and then academia was derailed again. So once I finished, I was like, what am I gonna do? So.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And then just a one thing then, you did your kinesiology master's at Waterloo as well. Is that kind of a good idea too? Because I know like with PT school in general, there's a lot of hands-on and whatnot, but would you be getting that like same experience if you were to do a master's in kin other than PT? Like, do you think you would have more knowledge or less knowledge, like comparing PT school to a kinesiology master's?
So it depends on what you do your master's in, because the nice thing about PT school degree is you're then a physiotherapist and you can practice physiotherapy. When you finish your master's, you don't necessarily have a job. You have a master's, but that's more of a qualification for something perhaps otherwise. And sometimes if you're looking into the medical sales field, the master's prerequisite can sometimes substitute in years of experience. So if you have an entry-level field sales position in pharmaceutical sales, they might say, 3 to 4 years of experience in this job or a master's degree in something of a related field. So it can sometimes do that. But one of the interesting parts about kinesiology master's degrees is there's a very number of experiences you're going to get based on which department you're in and which supervisor you're with. So I know for my example, I know a lot of people who did their masters in Dr. Russ Tupling's lab, and their masters were very much projects that went along with the narrative of Dr. Tupling's overall arching academic program. And so when they were starting up in their masters, it was very much like, here's the project, complete the project, do the work for it, ask questions, finish it up, and then you're done. Whereas when I went with Dr. Rush, it was very much, I walked in there expecting that, and he kind of went, yeah, whatever you want to do, you can do. So I had to do a lit review, figure out a question, design the study, run the study, do the data interpretation. Like, I almost think of it as a mini PhD because it was very much free form, which for me was spectacular because that gave me a really different amount of experiences in learning to do things on your own and learn to research things and figure them out by yourself, and a lot of that perseverance side of things, which really lent me well when I was interviewing a lot, because I went through a lot of interviews and did not get a lot of jobs, which was demoralizing, but I still had the persistence to stick with it, even though you're getting a lot of negative feedback. It's still feedback that you can then build towards. So very different things that you can do with that type of idea.
Awesome, thank you. That really helped.
Thanks for those questions, Nina. And I will add that there are a lot of people do go straight from undergrad and apply straight to physiotherapy and do that route as well. So that's also an option.
And I know people who have done the opposite too, who have done physio and then done a master's. One of my friends she did kin with me, a master's degree in Dr. Tupling's lab, then did physio, and is now doing her PhD with Dr. Bill McElroy. Looping all around again too. So there's you really do anything you want.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about kin is that it's a very, if you know that it wants to be in some type of healthcare realm, it's a really great degree just because it gives you so many little tick marks and allows you to speak to so many little things and then specialize into it.
Awesome. All right, it looks like Connor has a question, and then Kalsha can go next. Connor.
Hey Ben, how are you doing?
Well, how are you?
Good. So just to introduce myself, my name's Connor. I'm in 4B kinesiology. doing a minor in management studies, which is sort of the business side. It's in the arts faculty just because it sparked my interest. Majority of my co-op's been in manufacturing settings, health and safety, ergonomics, but I'm not sure if that's the route I want to take. My question for you was, when comparing inside sales compared to field sales, what are like the positives and benefits you have from both sides? And in your role right now with the company you're with, Dexcom, where do you see yourself progressing in like the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, great question. So major differences between the two positions is going to be mainly who you're speaking to. So inside sales is mainly a patient-facing role. So I would only talk to patients. And so it was, how do I take the information of what Dexcom provide and boil it down to someone who might not know any type of medical terms, or have just been diagnosed with diabetes and have very little idea of what the disease entails. And it's an office-based job. So you're at your computer, you're phoning, and it's just phoning out and typing out little notes and doing sales and finishing up your sales type of thing. So it's a lot less of a strategy-based job and more of a, here are the people that are interested in that need to be called, and call them and try to see if they want to actually buy Dexcom. And so with the field sales job, I take a lot of the experiences I learned while in inside sales for conversations, being comfortable talking on the phone. As a 30-something-year-old guy, don't necessarily like talking on the phone. So that was something that really helped me now. But it's a lot more of a strategy-based job where they give me a territory and they say, here is your business, here is your number, do whatever you need to do to hit it. And so I figure out who I want to call on, how many times I'm going to call on them, what type of conversations I'm going to run, what type of programs I want to run. So if I'm going to have an educator event or an educator dinner, who's going to be speaking at it, have to talk to that person, get them in. So it's a lot more of a strategic role in a company where you're not just completing the sales at the bottom, you're making the leads come down to the sales team, which is sometimes a little different than other sales or field sales jobs. Like my wife's brother is in a company called MERS, and so they do injectables, like cosmetic injectables. And so he does a very much more transactional field sales job. So his relationships are still with the doctors at the clinics, but he directly sells them product. And so he'll take transaction orders and they say, hey, I want to buy $10,000 worth of this injectable, $15,000 of this, and he does a direct sale. Whereas I don't do as much of a direct sale, I do more of an influence. And so my end goal is to try to get the doctor to prescribe more Dexcom, whereas he is directly selling something. And so some subtle differences there that do end up happening. But I hope that answered that part of the question. Where I hope to be within Dexcom, I love Dexcom. I'm hoping to retire here because it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. And so I'm lucky that I found a place that I really love. And my manager currently happens to be one of my really good friends with the company. So those conversations are a lot easier. So I hope to eventually turn into a, some sort of regional manager goal where I am then managing a field team. And so you'd have a number of field sales reps under your little area, and your job is to basically help them succeed in what they're doing. So I contact her if I need some help with a specific area, or if I need some ideas on some programs, she can help facilitate that type of information. And then usually, yeah, it's, field sales manager, you can go to director, vice presidents of the company type of thing. I'm actually having conversations with our field sales director this week to figure out what type of progression that is, because even though I'm in this job right now, I'm in the same type of boat where business isn't my first knowledge base. And so when you ask me what I want to be, I sometimes don't even know what that could be. And so just by asking different people in different fields, how did you get there and who do you talk to see how you need to get somewhere, can really help figure out what that wants to be, because you might not know a job exists and you might ask someone and then you know that job exists and go, oh, that's the job I really want to do. And that's how I found my job, and that's how I'm hoping to find my future jobs here. So keep asking people.
Thanks for the answer. And I just have one question to go off that. If you had the opportunity to do an MBA, would you consider doing that as well?
Yes, I've asked that question to a bunch of people because in the organization I am in, I see a lot of people who are at a certain level. Some of them do have MBAs, some of them don't. The thing that I've heard most frequently is it will never hurt, but it won't necessarily be a golden ticket. So nowadays it's not going to be like, oh, you're going to for sure get this job because you have an MBA. But it definitely doesn't hurt if you're in a pile of applicants and you do happen to have one, that can go positively towards progressing in that process. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a needed thing, but I have considered doing it. I'm trying to get over the $50,000 for 1 year price tag of it. So for most of the good ones. So
thanks, Ben.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. So it's one of those seen as an asset, but not a requirement of a position.
Yeah, and that's even, I've spoken to, the executive vice president, I guess she's senior vice president now, who runs all of Dexcom Canada. And she does not have one, and she doesn't necessarily see it as a barrier to her progressing, but she does see that a lot of people up in those C-level suite type of jobs and, executive vice president role type of things, they often do have one. And I do know that when conversations about, profit margins and all those type of things come up, I glaze over a little bit, and that might not happen so much if I had an MBA. So one of those one of those ROI questions, what's the return on investment? If you put it in time-wise and money-wise, what are you getting back? And I find that's one of the key questions you can always ask yourself when looking for jobs. And if you're switching career paths, what is the ROI? If you're on a current position, role, trajectory, and you want to make a certain amount, can you get there on this path? And if you need to change paths, how much time will that take? How much effort you have to put in? How much money you have to spend to possibly get qualifications to get onto another path? And making those assessments, I find, are really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes there are opportunities when you know you want to get experience in a new area, but you're weighing whether or not to do more education. Sometimes it's just a conversation to have with your manager to ask about learning another piece of the business. And maybe that's a role that the manager plays that you don't, but there might be opportunity for you to learn and gain that work experience that, again, fills that gap without necessarily doing, a full MBA, but you still get to learn how the profit margins work, and so that makes sense and you understand that piece of the business.
Well, and you are 100% right about that, because when I got to inside sales, the day I got there, I went to my manager and I said, I want to be a field rep. That's what I want to do. And so every opportunity where there was a conference where the current field rep was, I was sent as their helper. And so I would see that experience. I would experience what that was like. I would talk to some of his clients and see what that whole thing was. And I was able to talk to him. And so that prepared me when that job opened up to say, hey, I've from day one expressed interest into this position. And I have, you can't get experience as a field rep without being a field rep. But if you put into that effort of trying as much as possible to get that field rep exposure, I was able to move into that role without too many hiccups.
Mm-hmm.
And now in my current role, I'm talking to my current manager saying, I want to do something else. And so she's using her time to find out, set up meetings with a director and set up meetings with this person so that I can touch on different things and ask them questions as well. So really expressing where you want to be to your current bosses as well is very helpful, because hopefully if they're a good manager, they'll really try their best to keep you around and fit you into and get you that exposure that you'll benefit from.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A great manager when they are someone who's willing to help you develop and move your career in the direction that you want. If your manager is not someone who is helping you do that, then there are better ones out there.
It's going to be
all right,
really tough.
Tasha, I know you had a question before you had your hand up. Do you still have a question for us?
I do. Ben, nice to meet you. Feels like I already know you because I'm a second year PhD student in Dr. Robin Duncan's lab, and our lab is your old lab. So
fun.
Yeah, so it was everyone's moved upstairs. Dr. Tupling is in a new building now, but we're kind of in the old area still. But my question was, it's getting to a point where you're considering academia or going to the industry, or doing going into professional school even after the PhD. So networking is a huge thing, and I'm just wondering how difficult or easy it was for you to get into the industry. If you had any internal connections that was helping you through the process, and kind of what that's like.
Yeah, so I think someone that you should reach out to is someone who, I think she actually used to work in Robin's old lab, Diane Kishi. So she was in my year and she got her PhD and is now in a group that really focuses on what to do with a PhD if you don't want to go into academia. And I could probably send you her contact information because she's like one of the people who runs that. I think it's a company, but I don't really know what they do. But I see it pop up on my LinkedIn a lot. But for me, you repeat the question? I actually forgot it.
Oh, I was just wondering what kind of the difficulties are in getting a job in the industry and networking. I am considering academia. I'm actually teaching a 4th year undergraduate course at the moment. KIN 446 is what I'm teaching at the moment, but kind of getting a taste of it too, with interacting with undergraduate students and seeing how that's like. It's not an option that I'm completely cutting out, but I just want to kind of see what the perspectives are.
Yeah, I found, so I touched on it earlier, but I can't express enough how invaluable recruiters are because they know the industry. And for me, I didn't know the industry at all other than just Googling jobs and seeing what popped up, which can be very demoralizing if you're not seeing things pop up, and B, sometimes it's very hard to get those initial firewall, send your resume type of things in. And so recruiters are really great in that a lot of times some of the bigger companies or middle companies will go to them with a job posting, and it is then their job to fill that position. And the recruiter does not get paid by you, they get paid by the company if they fill the position. So they're free to use. And you can just contact them and say, hey, here's my resume. I'm looking into this type of job. Do you have anything on the table that fits your bill? And for me, when I was working at the bike shop, that was great because every couple of weeks, my recruiter would call me and say, hey, I've got this job lined up. It's this in this position. This is what they're looking for. Do you want me to put your name in? And then they just send you a time when there's an interview and you interview. And so sometimes finding, recruiters are oftentimes busy. So if you find a good one, or if you can get them to, fight your fight for you, that's very helpful. But I can't express enough how invaluable I found that for me. If you're staying in Ontario, it's also much easier because almost every pharma and medical devices head office is in Mississauga or Toronto, somewhere around there. For me, the options were very much more limited in BC because there's not very many head office jobs. And then if it's a rep level job, usually they were looking for rep experience. And so I was able to, mix the two together. But yeah, I had lots of interviews for field positions in pharmaceutical companies or some of those type of things. I just wasn't very good at interviewing. And so my first interviews were just learning how to interview well. And that's another thing that your recruiter really helped with, was he was able to take feedback from, because sometimes if you're interviewing, they just never talk to you again, and you're like, oh, I don't know why I didn't get that job. I thought I was qualified, and they just never called me. So the recruiter always disseminates the information to you about what the hiring manager said. It's like, oh, they loved you, your qualifications were great, but they just needed this type of experience. So then you can take that and go, okay, well, what can I do to try to get that experience? Can I talk to someone? Can I shadow with someone? Just gives you somewhere to focus your energy to make yourself better for the next interview.
Just my follow-up question is, how do you go about finding these recruiters and recruiters that you might think will have the connections that you specifically want?
Yeah, so recruiters are handy in that way, and that they focus on one area. So Locke & Associates is one group. You can just Google, let me just see, there's a couple.
I was just gonna ask, do I just Google recruiter theory on Google?
Yeah, like,
so you just, okay, let's.
But then, like, once you're in a recruiter place, they'll have people. So Goldbeck is a good one that I was using at some point. The guy I eventually used was at Locke & Associates.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll usually have a big list, and they'll say, like, this guy does engineering. This person does healthcare. This girl does something. And so you can contact them directly and say, hey, I'm looking for a role in the healthcare field. And so they'll usually have job postings that they're trying to fill that you can go through and say, oh, I might be good at this. But then they can also take your resume and say, I think you would be good for this, and give you a good pitch to the hiring manager as well.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And I love BC. I just visited, I think 2 months ago, and just fell in love with BC as well. That's why I was just like, oh, BC seems really nice. I do like hiking and outdoorsy stuff too. But thank you so much for taking your time to answer all of our questions. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, of course, my pleasure. Yeah, we fell in love with it too, and yeah, we've been here for 8 years now, with 9. So.
And never moving back to Ontario. It was funny. I was watching TV one day, and a Dexcom commercial comes up, and I'm watching the commercial. I'm like, that rock climber looks oddly familiar. And I send a message to his wife, like, is Ben in a commercial?
Yes,
and,
I was on a commercial at one point.
Pardon?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I was. Now that Nick Jonas is on the Dexcom commercials, I don't get as much airtime anymore, but I think the first one was just a bunch of us regular people, and yeah, it was fun.
It was a fun moment. As somebody watching it, I was like, well, this is really weird that I would recognize someone in a commercial, but
yeah,
here we are.
I look very similar as well. There we go.
All right, who else? Does anyone else have any questions that they want to ask? We've got about 15 minutes left. I know Nina wants to do a screenshot that she can use in a follow-up post.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We can do that right now if you want. If you guys want to show your face, that'd be awesome, just to show, the interaction that we're having today. But if you don't want to, I'll just count down from 3 and then just smile, wave, or anything you guys want to do, and then we can go from there. Okay, so I'll count down. Is everybody ready?
All right, I'm
Sounds
just
good.
going to turn off my camera. I'm
Yeah.
I'm in sweats and writing a paper, so I can just.
No, 100%. You don't
Okay.
have to use your camera.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, awesome. Is everybody ready? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. We're good. That's it.
Awesome.
It's
Thank
over.
you, everybody. Thanks, Nina. Okay. Anyone else have any questions they want to ask? I'm going to check the questions that were submitted when people registered to see if there's anything else. One of the questions was, what advice do you have for new kin grads anxious to secure a job?
Yeah, I would, for me, it was just keep at it. I think it's very rare that you'll ever get like the very first job you'll ever apply for and interview for. I know for me personally, that came to a real fruition. So the job I interviewed for right before Dexcom was a field role in insulin pump sales. So very similar remuneration, very similar job to what I'm currently doing. And when I was interviewing for that, I had interviewed a whole bunch of other jobs. I felt very prepared for this job interview. It was in diabetes, which I was very comfortable with. Insulin pump, I've been using an insulin pump for like 15 years, so I knew everything about it. I'm very prepared. And so interviewing, few interviews with the current field rep, the regional manager, all these people, I get down to the last 2 people and they choose the other person. And so I was quite devastated because at the time I was still working at the bike shop. I thought this was my dream job. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity that's just now gone, to find like a rep position with diabetes at that level of, getting into medical sales in Vancouver. I was just devastated. 2 weeks later, the Dexcom role became available. I got that. And now I am in that same job that I would have wanted to be in my dream job currently. And the funny thing is 3 weeks after starting at Dexcom, the rep that I was interviewing with, or the rep that was interviewing me for being his helper in BC, quit Animas and joined Dexcom. And then Animas went out of business 6 months later. And so when I was looking back and reflecting, I go, well, what would have been my dream job would have actually been a nightmare, because my mentor would have left the company and then I would have been out of a job. And here I am now building into something that I find even better, because Dexcom is, the world leader in the technology that it's focusing on. So it's not a technology that's me going away. So, almost missed the boat on this one and caught another boat. So whenever you see yourself feeling down about missing an opportunity or something like that, just remember there's equal, if not 10 more opportunities that will probably be the next one that you're actually on. So I find that's the main thing, is just don't get discouraged by the rejection of an interview, because just take what you learned from it to apply to your next one, because there's always a next one, and the next one's probably the one you actually want.
That's great advice, Ben. Thanks.
Getting rejected is not fun, but
no.
after you sit with the not funness, you can usually learn something about, you can do something better about for the next time and find that. And a quick little trick that I learned from one of my friends in that. So if you're ever submitting your resume into a job online and you're trying to get it through that initial firewall, what you can do is you can copy and paste the entire job description, paste it at the bottom of your resume, make the whole thing one font, and color it white. So it doesn't actually show up on your resume, but because the words are there, if any of the words are in their filter screen algorithm, and if those words are probably in their job description, you'll get through that part at least, and hopefully see a person.
That is the best
Actually really
trick
works.
I have ever heard. Everybody write that down.
Yeah, I started doing it, and I was like, all of a sudden, people started contacting me, and I was like, oh my God, I got through the firewall. So
Yeah.
yeah, copy paste the whole thing, one font, color it white. So literally like this spot at the bottom of your resume. Doesn't usually affect the number of pages you have.
Amazing.
Pro tip.
What a cool tip. I love that. Actually, it just made me think of another interviewing tip that a friend of mine who works in HR shared that I thought I'd share with the group, is just that her advice is always after an interview, once you kind of hang up that phone or leave the room or whatever, you know, virtually turn off, leave the meeting, just take a minute to sit down and write down the questions that you were asked. And then what you can do is start building a bank of interview questions that you can use as you're preparing over again. And I know I think it's sometimes a challenge to, after an interview, actually sit and just think about those things and write them down, because either like it went really well and you want to go tell someone, or like you're excited, or any number of emotions after an interview. But if you take that few minutes to sit down, write down the questions that you were asked, then you'll start to build this bank of questions that you could use as you prepare for future interviews as well.
Building on that, 2 tips that I had from my recruiter and what I was learning too is, first thing is always make sure that they know that you want the job. And you're just trying to get the offer. Like once you get the offer, then you can decide, do I actually want this job? All that type of stuff. But he always said, like, when you finish a date and you want a second date, ask for the second date at the end of the first date. Like, I love this date. I had a really great time. When can I see you again? Do that same thing with the job process. So I really love the company. I think this went really well. I would love to make it to, I'd like to interview with you again, or I'll make sure that I can do everything in my power to make it that we can have another interview or something like that. But just really make sure you express interest. And something that for me that I found was something that I did probably stupidly at the start, but don't necessarily take your resume as the be all end all. I would very much go into interviews and be like, oh, well, tell us a bit about yourself. And I go, well, you have my resume in front of you. So you know I'm qualified for the job because it's there in front of you. So always make sure that you're still selling yourself for the job too, and not necessarily just letting your resume speak for yourself, because it's not always the best resumes that get the job. It's the person that can express how their resume and their personality can fit into the role that they're currently applying for. So research is the best thing for those type of job preparations. You know, if you know that the job is going to be for a pharmaceutical product, research the hell out of that pharmaceutical product, so that you know exactly what it does, who it's for, all the random stuff about it. I know I did an interview for a drug that was reducing ovarian cysts or something. So I did a whole bunch of research on what those were, how this drug did that, how it did it better than its competitors, what its competitors were, so that if any question in the interview happened to be about that, I could answer it. And so, yeah, even though I know nothing about that anymore, it was a great amount of learning that I could do for that specific role, and try to make sure that I position myself best for it. So you never prepare too much for an interview.
Including co-op interviews. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions that they want to ask? Or Ben, any final thoughts? I think you've shared a lot of great insights and interview tips and talking about recruiters. That was, I think, a really interesting piece to learn more about.
Yeah, and just ask people stuff. I know that for me, working in the bike shop, I knew a lot of people who were in sales, because bikes weren't cheap, and a lot of those medical sales people do make quite a good amount of money. And I just go up to them and be like, hey man, I really think what you do sounds pretty cool. Can I buy you a coffee one day and just pick your brain about what you do? And so I was speaking to the sales director of Easton Cycling about what that looked like. A couple of guys I had coffee with were surgical sales. They went into the operating room with the doctor and was like, this is how you use this thing, or this is the equipment that you use in that surgical area. And so it really gets you an idea of, if you do want to go into medical sales, what might you want to go into? What might pique your interest? What do they need as prerequisites for that type of job? Where in the job hierarchy it is? So just talking to people is really helpful. And a lot of times LinkedIn is really nice for that. But don't feel like you need to go out and get a LinkedIn premium account if you don't need, or if you don't want one, because I balk at the $34 a month price. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to pay premium for that. So you can get a lot done without that, and just talking to people of doing certain things.
Yeah. And that's where I plug 10,000 Coffees, because that's what that platform does for our students and alumni as well. So even it kind of takes all of our faculty, alumni, and students, and LinkedIn is the whole world, but on 10,000 Coffees, it's just our alumni and students who are in that platform. So use that member list and search. It has the same search function where you can search by jobs or topics, interests, people's names if you know the name of who you're looking for. But use that and look for different careers that you want to learn more about, and just reach out to that person. All of those alumni who have joined 10,000 Coffees have basically said, like, yes, I want to connect with students and support our students. So they're waiting for someone to reach out to help them network, or help them answer questions as they start their careers. So please, I encourage students always to take a look at that platform and learn how to use it, and just know that it's there as a resource for you. And
always know that most people that you're asking are going to be chatterboxes, and as a general rule of thumb, people like to talk about themselves. And so asking people what they do is, I sometimes just say like, hey, what do you do and how did you get there? And they've just talked for 20 or 30 minutes. And it's just this wealth of information. They're happy to get to know you. They're happy to pass on stuff. I've never met I've never met anyone that I've asked, like, hey, what do you do? They're like, I'm not going to tell you or talk to you. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen. They've just been, everyone's been more than happy to open up.
Exactly. I think it's an intimidating thing to think about doing, but when you actually do it, the number of people who say yes is probably almost 100%. So yeah, just looking at the time, I'm just going to wrap up quickly and say a few closing notes. First of all, thank you so much to Ben for joining us. I hope everyone took some great information away from this discussion. And I think Ben said that you can connect with him on LinkedIn. So I can share that with the group later, or Ben, if you want to throw your LinkedIn in the chat for the students, you can do that. And
I don't use LinkedIn often, but if you message me, I will message you back.
Or if, is there a way you preferred? Like, if you're happy to share your email, we can do that method as well. Whatever.
Yeah, email works probably better. Yeah, I'm probably better at answering those.
Cool.
I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. So if anyone wants to connect with Ben, you can send him an email if you have any other questions. I also want to mention that you will get a survey about joining the event in your inbox tonight. So if you have 2 minutes, it's like a really quick smiley face rating score. So it doesn't take you long to fill out, but if you could fill it in, it's helpful to me just to know for our programming if students are enjoying these sessions. And then my last plug is about our tote and poster design contest. So If you haven't heard about it, we're asking students and alumni to help us design our new faculty tote bags and posters. And so this design contest is open now, and you can submit your designs by February 4th for a chance to have it printed and to win some other prizes as well. And I will put the link for that in the chat if anyone is interested and has some hidden design skills that I don't know about. So that is everything for today. Thank you all for joining us. And that's it for today. And keep an eye out for the rest of our alumni office hours events this term. So we've got more KIN alumni lined up to talk to you guys. So thanks, everybody. And Ben, don't sign off yet.
Oh, okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ben.
See ya.